autism spectrum. So please stay tuned for that as well. But first up, we have Dr. Shimi Kang with us, and you are in for a show, my friends, if you have not heard of Dr. Shimi Kang before. So Dr. Shimi Kang is a psychiatrist. She's a best-selling author, and she is a mom of 3 beautiful children. You know what, you guys, we are raising children who are with rising rates of stress and insomnia and anxiety and depression, addiction, obesity, and diabetes. And yet we are the parents of the generation with the most information out there. So we really need to change these trends. We are facing the shocking reality that this is the first generation in human history that is predicted to not outlive the generation before us. On average, our teenagers are checking their phones over a whopping 150 times per day and spending 7 hours on day on screens unrelated to school and homework. And this was even before the pandemic. I know my children have been learning from home, and that just multiplies the rates of which they are online. These rates have skyrocketed during the pandemic, and now children and teens and adults all need to rely on screens more than ever before. We are so happy to have Dr. Shimi Kang with us to help us best navigate these stresses that COVID brings with the increase in technology and all the stresses and the impact that COVID brings with us today. Welcome, Dr. Shimi Kang.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Erica Harris. And you can certainly call me Shimi. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Brian. And I'm really excited to talk about this, very passionate about it. I live it, breathe it with 3 kids myself, 2 teenagers and a tween. And my clinical practice is with lovely, wonderful families. And I speak to parents from around the world. So I'm really hoping that we could give them practical solutions to some of the things they're struggling with.
Yes. And just before the show, everyone, Shimi was just opening up, right? She just had a call right before we were jumping on from this 19-year-old who was feeling so overwhelmed. Like, this is a pressing topic to talk about today. And here at Rise Today, the Inspirational podcast, we are always so inspired to really open up this conversation about hardship and share tools to stay the course, to help us all best navigate and best serve our children's mental wealth here in this show today. So yes, Shimi, take us back. Tell us the impact that you feel COVID is having on our children at large.
Yeah, so I mean, COVID is a collective stressor, and this is very unique on a global level. We've only had global pandemics a few times. We've had a couple of world wars, but let's make no mistake, this is a serious collective stressor. Prior to the pandemic, I worked at the WHO in Geneva, Switzerland, and I was a young intern, probably in I don't even know, 1996. But at that time, we were looking at what was called the global map of health. And the WHO declared back then, pre-pandemic, that of all the things, heart disease, cancer, Ebola virus, they picked stress as the #1 health epidemic of the 21st century. And that was before the pandemic. I was there. I saw the research, because stress is so toxic. It's toxic to our bodies. It releases cortisol, which reduces our immune system. It dysregulates our hormones. It leads to mental health issues and cardiovascular, and it goes on and on. So, I was really struck by that as a young scientist, as a young doctor, and I became I went on and became an addiction psychiatrist. And I would say that we need to understand stress, what it's doing to us. We needed to do it before COVID. Now we need to do it even more, because this is part of our lives, and we can't make excuses. It's no one else's fault. It's our right and responsibility to take care of ourselves.
It sure is. You talk a lot about adaptability, Shimi. So how can we best serve our kids and help them adapt with these stresses?
Yeah, so in my first book, it was called The Dolphin Parent. And really the core concept of there is I used the metaphor of a dolphin. I said, we humans have forgotten what it means to be human. We have forgotten the basics of life. And I used the metaphor of a dolphin to remind us of how the human brain is hardwired, how the mammal brain is hardwired, actually. And it was really to try to make a point. My patients would tell me, my parents would tell me, oh, Dr. Kang, my child's too busy to sleep that much. I would say a child needs 8 to 12 hours of sleep. And they'd be like, well, he's playing hockey and he's doing this and piano. And I would say, like, dolphins live in the ocean and they can be eaten by a shark, but they alternate their brain hemispheres and they sleep 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, because that is a centerpiece of our health. And so they play every day and they connect socially every day. So the three things that we need, human beings need every day that we're not getting enough of are, I call them the pod prescriptions. It's play, learning through trial and error, trying new and different things, others, social connection and social bonding. It's not socializing, it's bonding, and downtime, self-care, breathing, mindfulness. These three things, play, others, and downtime, are what lead us to adaptability, what lead us to innovation, and what lead us to health.
Beautiful. Can you extrapolate a little bit on this social bonding idea in terms of right now with, this idea of social distancing? Extrapolate a little bit on that for me, please.
Yeah. So of course we're all a bit more lonely and missing each other. That's true. And, so we have to adapt, right? So survival of the fittest isn't the fastest or the strongest, the one who can adapt. So what we have to do now in COVID is we have to be more intentional with our social connections. We have to try a bit harder to look at each other's faces, facial expression, to hear each other's voices. Instead of texting and emailing, pick up the phone, use video conferencing. And that's why I'm so passionate about the issue of technology, which is the topic of my next book, my latest book called The Tech Solution, because those micro moments of social bonding and connection release something called oxytocin. Oxytocin is a powerful neurohormone of health, happiness, bonding, and trust. We are social beings. And so just little things in a coffee shop, in a bus stop, with our kids at the dinner table, let's look at each other, see each other, hear each other, put down our phones. Yes, it's a terrible pandemic, but it is what it is. Let's adapt to it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Shimi, a question for you. Do you encourage parents to have a time limit for children on their phones and screen time, even during the pandemic?
Well, yes, absolutely. I have 3 kids and I have time limits for myself. And my brain is fully developed. Well, not fully, but the human brain doesn't fully mature till around 25. Our neuropuberty goes till about then. So kids do need limits and guidance. They're not experts at self-regulation. No adult is either. So I limit myself. And the way I talk about it really, I don't know if I even have a visual here. I might. In my book, it's called The Tech Diet, and I might even have a plate here, and I'll give it to you for your show notes. But it's beyond screen time, and I talk about screen quality, and I'll give a really practical example. 1 hour of Instagram can be toxic tech if all you're doing is comparing your life to others or reading hate or whatever. It will release cortisol. You want to avoid that, like toxic food. 1 hour of Instagram can be what I call junk tech, like chips and Coke. It's a little bit of sugar. It's not going to kill you if you're mindlessly scrolling or mindlessly just not looking at stuff. But it's like a bag of chips, empty calories, and too much is bad for you, like junk food. 1 hour of Instagram can actually be healthy tech if you are bonding in a meaningful way, building community, doing something creative like drawing or writing poetry. That is endorphin, self-care, oxytocin, connection, and serotonin, creativity. So those are the ingredients. I actually break them down into neurochemicals so everyone's really clear. Just like we understand sugar and carbs and fats, we can understand our brain metabolism. There's cortisol, toxic, avoid it. Dopamine, junk, limit it, it's sugar. And then consume the healthy stuff for self-care, connection, and creativity.
That's brilliant. And as the Dolphin parent, are we creating these parameters and supervising our kids in terms of how they're doing so? Or are we educating them and ensuring, like giving them the trust with this? What's that best fine line that we walk to really keep them safe, right? And encourage this healthy tech and more of the healthy tech, but yet maintaining their trust, right? What's that fine line that we should walk?
For sure. And I know I'm speaking in metaphor, but I feel that's how people remember things. And the human brain is like that. We're visual. We love stories. So the dolphin parent, the qualities, think of the qualities of the dolphin. I say The body is firm yet flexible. Okay. As parents, we need to be firm and flexible. So I have some firm limits in my house, right? No screens at the kitchen table, no screens when we're driving in the car. That's bonding time, bedtime, blue light glasses for prolonged periods of time. Video gaming is sports only, with friends only, no lonely first-person shooter playing in the basement for hours. So I'm really firm, but I am flexible. I have 3 kids. My oldest son has ADHD and written output disorder. So he needs his phone more in school. He has to take pictures of things, and he uses a playlist and noise canceling headphones. I have to be more flexible with him than my middle son. My daughter has dyslexia. She needs tech for reading and writing. So I have to be more flexible with her. But so the metaphor of the dolphin is firm but flexible, shoulder to shoulder, moving forward together. Imagine those images of dolphins moving, playing. Keep it light, be playful, make sure you're bonded and connected, and use your pod, your community. I can't do this alone. I have to elicit my cousins, their cousins, the grandparents, the teachers, the coaches. Everybody has to also be on board, and I have to find like-minded families and friendships for my kids and myself.
So much of value here. And I had heard Shimi speak years ago. She spoke for us at our school, and I was just so in awe of all that she shared. And this imagery that she's talking about has stuck with me this whole time of being this dolphin parent. And I have just really loved this. And I think it's this imagery. I totally agree, right? Because it's what we can connect with those lessons and that best serves us. So I think that's so wonderful. Now, I have another question. I'm going to put myself here on ready to be criticized here, because I'm all about sharing and propelling this real and authentic message, right? So, in my world of serving as once a thriving sports chiropractor, I'm a big fan of activity and keeping our kids moving at the same time, right? And so tell me, I think my kids are listening to the show right now. Tell me, is this parenting approach a good style to say, okay, like I kind of make my kids work for their tech time, right? Yes. And for their video gaming. And I'm like, okay, let's go for a couple runs around the field. And then this equates to X amount of time for video games. Is this a poor approach with the dolphin parenting style, Shimi?
You know what? No, it's an amazing approach. I totally agree with it. It's scientific. This is what the science says, right? We have to follow the science, and we can all have opinions, but we know how to parent. We know how to raise healthy, happy, self-motivated kids. I say it's simple, but simple is not easy. Knowing is not doing. And we get into fear and we do all kinds of stuff. We get scared and we fight and we flight and distract and we freeze and we control. But you made 2 really great points there, Erica. One is tech time should be built in after real life. And so take a 24-hour clock. You cannot compromise sleep. So 10 to 12 hours of sleep. Family dinner is one of the most robust findings in all of child development. Kids who eat dinner together with their families have better health, physical, mental, and academic performance. So obviously that's priority, and add in school and homework and movement. Sitting is the new smoking. I have my standing desk here. I'm going to go up and down. I have a treadmill underneath. I love my tech. I use it a lot, but when we sit for prolonged periods of time, our body the lymphatic system doesn't collect all the toxins it needs to. So we need to move. Kids need to move. And the tech posture, this hunched posture, I have an image of it in my book and on my webinars. The gaming posture, our neurons don't know why. It will ask, our nervous system will ask us, why are you crouched over, hiding in a cave, not looking at anyone? Is there a hurricane? Is there a predator? And just the posture and sitting will fire cortisol. So you made so many good points here. Yes, moving, guiding, incentivizing, limits, all of it we need.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I talk a lot about the power posture, right? And even when we find ourselves in this position, if you think about, on days that we're feeling depressed or lonely, and we automatically assume that position, right? But a simple change in posture can help us so much. And so even breaking up that screen time and, going for a run up the stairs or around the house or whatever we can do to break that up is so important.
Yeah, our bodies and mind are connected. In the Dolphin Parent, I talk about 7 different types of play. because in each evolved with the human being and body, and we need to use our body. We need to play with our hands. Our hands are intelligent. We need to move our body in new and different postures, because that builds our cerebellum, the part of the brain for balance, but also social relationships. People who wrestle and jostle and fall down and get back up physically are less likely to bully or be bullied, and more likely to fall down and get back up in their social lives. So this is a science, and we're not using this beautiful way we are built as mind, body, energetic people. And if we can get the science to people, I think we can get them doing these simple things a lot more.
Excellent.
Shimi, one of the things I love is everything you share and you explain is science-based solution, which is really remarkable. Could you share a little bit about the power of breathing? We're teaching some breathing techniques for children or for adults that might be just in that moment. How does breathing impact and help us deal with stress?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to use my friend here. This is my friend. I call him George.
Hi, George.
So, and thank you, Brian, for asking that question on breathing, because, I said simple is not easy. Breathing is so simple, but it's not easy. Most of us don't know how to do it. And so we got to teach people breathing. And I have a YouTube video on box breathing, and there's all kinds of stuff. And in my program, we teach kids at the age of 2 how to breathe, because it is so powerful. So when we breathe and we stretch our lungs, these beautiful things here, there are receptors in the top and bottom here that when they are stretched out and held, a signal goes to our brain. Sorry, I'm not good at doing this on camera. Our brain here, it's all connected, that we are okay. Okay. And it moves us from, keep my little guy here, from survival system, cortisol driven system, to parasympathetic growth system. Just deep, slow breathing. That is simple, not easy. This is built in everybody, every child, every person. If we practice it and master it and respect the science of how we are built, this, I've seen it in kids by teaching them simple breathing technique. Breathing releases endorphins, our body's natural molecule of peace. So yes, breathing. So simple, not easy.
Yes.
How do we get these lessons into schools, Shimi?
Oh my God. Well, you just touched on something. Well, I was at BC Children's Hospital, a children's hospital for 17 years, and I'm a professor at UBC. And I got sick of seeing kids. I had a 1-year waiting list, and I got tired and frustrated with seeing kids wait a year for me. And by then they were so dysregulated, and it was like a mountain to climb. So after almost 20 years of that, I left and I started a program called Dolphin Kids. And what we're trying to do there is get into the school system, because we have this wonderful institution of school that all children are part of. And if we can teach this early, like 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have programs we're teaching all the way up to teenage years. Our goal is for every child to have 3 coping skills: 1 skill of play, 1 skill of social connection, others, 1 skill of downtime. And just for your audience, we have free lesson plans for all the teachers out there. They can download them, use them in their classrooms for different age groups. And if we can get teachers, and teachers are so stressed, 68% of teachers pre-pandemic said their work was constantly stressful. The second highest profession at risk of burnout, second to only nurses. So if teachers can do social emotional training, it will help them. It'll help their students. They can pause, they can breathe, and they can do mindfulness all in the classroom. And now we have a mandated curriculum. And thank goodness in America, I know that there's going to be more funding for social emotional learning. And here in Canada and around the world, it's getting more interest, and hopefully we'll see more uptake.
Well, it's so much needed, right? Because when we're struck with adversity as adults, right, we're kind of left there standing and no one ever tells us how hard it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
And so having these skills as children and learning these resilience tools and tools of mindfulness and awareness, all so important to do as children.
Yeah.
We have a question coming in. My son has social anxiety and is nervous about things reopening. Any ideas to prep him? Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, great question. I'm sure so many other parents are thinking of it. So first of all, 3 principles I say with children: truth, optimism. Truth and optimism. Let's say compassion is obviously there. So those are the 3. But let's talk about truth and optimism. Kids need to know the truth. They're smarter than we think. They pick up stuff. And so age appropriate information. You don't have to tell them all of your concerns about reopening. Ask them what they're worried about. So be curious and give them truthful answer to their questions. Don't give them cognitive overload, more information than they need. So truth is really important. Then you go to optimism. Okay. And then you quickly say, yes, I'm worried about that too. And, and it might be a little bit unclear and we don't know exactly what the protocols are. But you want to leave your child with this feeling that the adults in the world are working hard, helping them, and that they will be safe. And you're going to try your best to make sure that that is the case. And you can't guarantee that. Everyone has to do their part, but that's life anyway. That's like crossing the street, right? So truth and optimism, those 2 within that dolphin parent metaphor, and you can use play. Use some dolls or dolphins or stuffies to express and explain the problem. You can communicate, use others, or maybe you need to give them some breathing tools and help them cope with any anxiety they have. So play, others, downtime are always the 3 coping skills.
That's great. And what about some play for teens and family play? Give us some suggestions for that, please.
Yeah, well, the teenage brain is so interesting. I say it's a brain under construction. And teenagers are driven biologically to do 3 things with the neurochemical dopamine. It's, again, we were hunter-gatherers. Teenagers needed to leave their tribe and go into new territories and find their own. So it makes sense that they are driven to do 3 things. It's risk-taking. They are driven to seek and connect with their peers, and they're driven to seek novelty. So risk-taking, peer admiration, and novelty seeking. All human teenagers are driven for this. In the pandemic, they're not able to go to horror movies and roller coasters and stay up a bit late and ride their bike without their helmet properly, or whatever, all those little things they used to do to kind of push limits and take risks. Now, unfortunately, they're doing it online. And I'm seeing all this stuff online: risk-taking, cyberbullying, peer connection, exclusion, FOMO, comparisons. And it's really bad because once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you post something, it's there. And so we really have to guide teenagers to move from there and do that healthy tech. So to answer your question, what would be positive? So you can, things like improv and drama and storytelling and the extracurricular and art, writing, doing a painting and posting it to impress your peers or admire, so drive them, understand them, and then drive them to the healthy tech behaviors.
Excellent idea, Shimi. Love that. Can I ask you a question, Shimi? Do you have access to your kids' tech? Do you have access to their phones? And tell me about that, please.
Yes. So first of all, I have a set of house rules, Erica, I'll give you. You can post if you want.
Thank you.
So first of all, I recommend don't ever give your child a device, okay? My children borrow my devices. I pay for them and I buy them for them so they can borrow them. And that means I can look at them, make sure they're safe, and I can take them back because they're mine. Yeah. So I think that's a really important distinction. My son wanted a phone for his birthday, and I purposely gave it to him 2 weeks before his birthday because I didn't want him and with those parameters, right? I gave him another birthday present that was his. So then that's number one. Then we have to understand that kids, another metaphor, we don't let them we don't just give them the keys to a car and say, go drive. We give them lessons. We take them on local roads first before highways. So we have to do the same with devices. So we have to start small. With my kids, they were allowed to text message for carpool and homework first. If they checked that, then they were allowed to do it for socializing. Check that, then they were allowed social media. Now, along this route, there was so many problems. They failed. I failed. We all failed. We had to dial it back, get off the highway, back on local roads. They weren't ready yet. I wasn't ready yet. I hadn't trained them ready and not better. So limits, monitoring, checking passwords. Yes, definitely at the beginning. In general, I say around grade 8, because by grade 12, you want them to have competency. So you need a couple of years of guidance. So that's kind of a general idea, but I say more than the age, 3 things you want your kids to have a good sense of before you give them any device: time management, emotional regulation, and social skills in real life.
So important. And I see that because having given my children my phones, right? My youngest, who's only 10, who would never otherwise have access to a phone, he has type 1 diabetes. And so he monitors his blood sugars by his phone. So it goes with him everywhere, right? And so finding that perfect balance and teaching him at all of 10 years old is really important. And so this is why, myself and so many people are passionate about this conversation. And gosh, I'm just so happy for all the tools that you're sharing. Can you tell me your perspective on these shooting games?
Oh, well, I think Common Sense Media is a really good resource. I use it all the time. And so they kind of rate games based on violence and gender, gender bias and consumerism and really good stuff. So I always guide people to them. I think they're a great nonprofit. But violence in video gaming, it's really interesting. It's become a bit of a political issue too, in my opinion, because, it's kind of the same idea. Is it video games don't kill people? It's the guns that kill people, but it's the person that uses the gun, and it gets very complex. But in general, we want to watch what's going into our children's brains, okay? And we have choices. So if they have 30 minutes of free time, do you really want them shooting someone on a video game? Or how about, and my kids, they're allowed to play FIFA and NBA and Madden and sports games. So if they have 30 minutes, I'd rather them do that, play a sports game and also bond with their friends, as opposed to be a stranger or a first-person shooter. That's what I do. There is some evidence, right? Because the brain is adaptable, we get desensitized. So there is a phenomenon of being desensitized to violence the more we're exposed to it. The same goes for pornography, and we have to talk about pornography, and it's an uncomfortable topic. And in my book, I actually put it, yes, I'm afraid parents, we have to talk about pornography.
No, please open us up this conversation.
Because kids are using it, you're seeing it. Yeah. Again, they're getting desensitized. So your question is really relevant for so many things, whether it's violence or pornography or what is it. We are a product of our environment. Keep the environment healthy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Tell us some more on this pornography aspect and our kids getting exposed to this at such a young age now.
Yeah. I go into it. I'm an addiction psychiatrist. That's my currency. And when I wrote the book and I realized the persuasive design by the tech industry, and I'm not saying they conspired to ruin a generation, but they were business people who wanted to sell their products, and they found a way to do it using dopamine manipulation, persuasive design, and that's in all tech. And even I use it. I'm there. It's sugar. It's everywhere. Sugar is everywhere, and it's not all bad. Dopamine's kind of good. But when it comes to pornography, we have to understand that the most primal human experience is sex, right? And the levels of dopamine are very highly released. Now, if that is being wired and fired, any kind of sexual pleasure with technology, now you have a very dangerous mix of wiring and firing primal human experiences with screens and cameras and phones. And I have a young boy in my practice right now. He, was in an Ivy League school in America, super brilliant guy, very, very nerdy. And he didn't have good social skills, and he couldn't find a girlfriend or didn't know how. And he started looking at cam girls when he was 14, and that moved into pornography. And it got completely out of control because of the dopamine. He felt shame. He felt depressed. He was stuck in this behavior. He had a suicide attempt last year. And he now is my patient, and we have him on limits for his porn. He sends me reports of his browser. He's trying to rebuild his life. He's improving his social skills. He's got a girlfriend, but he has worked so hard, and he has suffered so much because he innocently, inadvertently ended up in this mess. And I see it all the time.
Wow. And there's just so much right at our fingertips and right at their fingertips at such a young age.
Yeah. And that actually goes to something I wanted to ask too, going back to the technology side on phones. I know on my phone with all the apps, there's nothing worse when you see that little red circle show up, whether it's on LinkedIn, it's like, oh, I have to check it. Like, even though you need to check it. Can you share a little bit about that? Do you encourage parents and children to kind of take off the notifications? And what does that do scientifically to us when we see that?
Yeah, so the color red, actually, the human brain sees it as danger, right? That's why stop signs are red and red lights are red and fire trucks are red. So that was purposely put red to capture our attention. So we do gravitate towards the red alerts. And I do recommend in the text solution to turn off all notifications and all autoplay. And again, just to make it healthy. Now, I have a notification to move my body every 20 minutes, and that one's red, and that's a good use of red. So, it's common sense, but it's hard. It's hard because it's all coming to us, and we're all so busy, and this new thing. And parents tell me, you know what, I can't do it because no one else is doing it. And I do it in my home, and then my kid goes to someone else's home, and it's okay. It's like food, right? Your kids will go to another house and eat junk food, but keep your house healthy as much as you can.
Right.
Excellent tools.
Thank you.
Shimi, you're just such a ray of sunshine. Like, I just remember being so inspired by you. Our kids play against each other at rivaling schools and sports, and you are just this pillar of insight and wealth of knowledge as a mom. And you're just so inspirational for me. And I just thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your amazing work. And Brian, and you're doing this hard work of getting these messages out to parents, and they need them. And there is a sense of urgency, as you said, Erica. We have rising rates of anxiety, depression, addiction. Now in the pandemic, cyberbullying has gone up. So there is this sense of emergency. We need all of our Dolphin pods, super pod together. We need coaches and teachers and psychiatrists and parents. But I don't want to end on that note of crisis. It is a crisis, but there's so much to be optimistic for. The human brain is resilient. We are adaptable. We are neuroplastic. We can change. It's never too late. If you're listening and you have an 18-year-old or a 30-year-old, it's never too late. We can move people towards positive behaviors. So remember that it is a gift of nature. It is called neuroplasticity. I say it's a 6-syllable word for hope, and we all have it in us.
I love that. That's so great, Shimi. That's beautiful. Thank you. And how can our viewers get a hold of you if they're interested in reaching out and learning more about you?
Sure. Yeah, I have a website, drshimikang.com. I'm on social media. Same. Our program, Dolphin Kids, is really about social emotional learning. Lots of great resources for parents and teachers. That's dolphinkids.ca. I have a YouTube channel called Mental Wealth with Dr. Shimi Kang. I want to go beyond health to wealth. So you can watch my videos there. I have books. You can buy my books at any bookstore. I hope my work can be helpful to people. And I really believe in science, and I think the science needs to be given directly to the population.
Absolutely. And Shimi, one of the great gifts about listening to you today is you make it very simple. You bring the science in, but you also make it understandable and also actionable, in a very clear way. So that's a tremendous gift, especially in a time of uncertainty. So thank you for that. I know that's going to help so many of our listeners.
Thank you. I have to give credit to all my teenage patients over the years and my own kids, because they've helped me, I guess, train me to do that, right? Because they're wonderful. They want science, they want logic, and they need it practical, and they need it quick. and so, you know, they've helped me, I think, develop this style. So I'm grateful for all of my patients and all of my kids who have helped me get here.
Ah, we're so thankful. And for all of you parents, we hope you have found inspiration and light from Dr. Shimi Kang. She is just an amazing human, and we are so happy to have her here with us today. And risers, come back. We are here at 11. We're going to take a quick break. We are here with Temi Ayodeja, who's going to open up the conversation about parenting and sharing tools to best parent children on the autistic spectrum. Thank you for being here, Shimi.
Thank you.
All the best, everyone.
Have a great day.
Rise today.
Excellent.